Welcome to Pathways to Greatness, where we explore the journeys of exceptional individuals who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. Whether you're an aspiring athlete, a business leader, or simply someone striving to reach your full potential, this podcast is your guide to unlocking the greatness within you. Join us as we dive into inspiring stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts that can transform your path to greatness. Let's embark on this journey together. Unleash your potential with Confronting Consulting. Are you a student athlete striving for greatness? Do you want to enhance your mental performance and elevate your game? At Confronting, we specialize in mental performance and success coaching tailored for student athletes, parents, and coaches. Our expert coaches provide personalized strategies to boost confidence, improve focus, and achieve your goals both on and off the field. Don't just play the game, conquer it. Visit ConquerItConsulting.com and schedule your free consultation today. Take the first step towards success. All right, welcome back to the Pathways to Greatness podcast. And today I'm joined with Josh Wells. And again, Instagram has led me to another really cool relationship. And I found Josh through another follow that I had found from a friend. And then Josh, I started watching his content, and then we had a great phone conversation. And I think it's the beginning of a good friendship.
Yeah, absolutely. People have a lot of bad things to say about social media, and I think there's avenues for that. But this has been a great relationship that we've built through social media. So
yeah, it's really cool. So before I get into the nitty gritty and tell everybody really who Josh Wells is, I like to play a game, and I've changed it up a little bit because you're episode 101.
There it is.
And so we'll see how well these questions work, but it's very similar. So I like to play Would You Rather. You ready?
Okay. Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Would you rather travel back 100 years or forward 100 years?
Back.
Okay. Why so?
I don't know. I think sometimes we get so caught up in how maybe bad things are today or tough things are today. And I think it'd just be cool to see where we came from and live in that time. So it might not be enjoyable, but I think we'd learn a lot. And I just think it takes away kind of the faith aspect too. If I jump far ahead, I just don't care really. I can see what's coming, and I don't think it takes much faith when you know exactly what's coming.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. And it's funny because like we asked that question now, and like my brain goes, oh, it'd be like 1800 something. I'm like, no, it's 1900 something.
Right. I mean, you're in the Depression. I mean, you're in it. You're in it. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't think it'd be enjoyable, but I think it'd be interesting to see how people grew up through that time.
Yeah, because there's so much of that Depression time that shaped the people that are really shaping us, because we're not that far removed from that.
Right.
And I feel like that's where people got into, clean your plate, don't leave any food, on your plate, which again has had a
bad effect
on all of us, especially as dads with chicken nuggets left on the plate.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Not that I don't want to stay there and keep going, but I think it'd be cool to go back and see.
That's right. If you could go back, how long, that brings up another good question. How long do you think you would want to stay there?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know. I mean, I have no idea what it'd be like. Maybe a year, maybe a calendar year. And then what age would I want to be would I want to be 30 then? Would I want to be a kid when I went back? Yeah, it's a deep question, but I guess as I am now, go back, maybe hang out for a couple months, get a taste for it, learn some things, and come on back here.
That's right. Come back to hot water and indoor plumbing and all that good stuff. Yes. Okay. So would you rather, this one's, I'm interested on this one. So would you rather always know the right answer or always make the right decision?
Wow. Always know the right answer. I think make the right decision.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think make the right decisions. Because like I said, I mean, I think they've been studies out, but like thousands and thousands of decisions a day. So yeah, there's always the right decision's not always easy, but I think if I'm making the right decision going forward of where I want to end up, where I want my family to end up, I think that's ultimately how we get to where we want to go.
For sure. Then I start to think, as you were saying that, because these are the first time I've asked these questions, so my head's been spinning as well. Because then I think if you always make the right decision, do you learn anything because you're always making the right decision? But then do you need to learn anything because you're always making the right decision?
Right. Because then if you know all the right answers and you don't make that's disobedience. Like you know the right thing to do and you don't do it, you're being disobedient. But if I'm making the right decisions, for me, that leans more into faithfulness. Like you said, you wouldn't mess up, so you really wouldn't learn. You wouldn't grow in like maybe being resilient. But you're making the right decisions, so you're taking that's more faith. Yeah, I don't know. I think making the right decisions is my final answer.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really
That's a
tough.
deep thinker. Yeah.
So far, I've won on those questions. All right. So the last one that I can't get rid of is: would you rather have pizza or tacos?
Tacos.
What kind?
Really, I mean, chicken tacos, steak tacos. I grew up eating obviously just like ground beef tacos. But being in Florida, we have a lot of great kind of just Mexican restaurants and places to eat good tacos. And pizza just, I don't know if I sound old now, but like pizza makes me just feel terrible. I mean, I enjoy it. Trust me, I love pizza. I enjoy it. But when I eat it, I'm just like, ooh. But I eat a good taco and I don't feel as bad. So tacos.
Yeah, I get it. That age, boy, it is
Yeah,
a
right. I'm not some old man, but it's coming.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
coming.
Trust me, it's on
Yeah.
its way.
Yeah.
Okay, the last one is: if you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Warning label. Has a warning. Has a tendency to overwork. Hey, it has a tendency to overwork. Kind of where growing up, obviously I fought just we'll get into it, I'm sure, but just like we'll just work at the cost of a lot of things. For a little while out there, it was at a cost of my wife and kids, a cost to my health. I mean, I had to get a hip replacement 5 weeks ago. Um, and I think that can go to overworking. So, and I can still fall into the trap of more work is the right answer. So yeah, warning has a tendency to overwork.
Okay, fair enough. Well, everybody, again, this is Josh Wells, and he's the founder of Undrafted Coaching, which we are 100% in alignment. When we had the conversation, it was like everything, we both were like, yes. And then he would say yes. And then we went back and forth.
Yeah.
What's incredible about Josh is that he's a former walk-on in college. He was
Yes,
undrafted in the pros. He's a 10-year NFL vet. Now, some people will say that they're a 10-year NFL vet, which is great. It's respectable. He also played in over 100 games. He's a Super Bowl champ. He was a starter. He's married. He's a follower of Christ. So that gives you a snapshot of Josh. And to let Josh know, and then anybody else who's new to the show, is I created Pathways to Greatness back in 2023 to bring people on like yourself who have these incredible stories that shows that everybody has a different definition of greatness. I also think that as we age, that definition will change and shift.
yeah.
And then our pathways, nobody has a linear path from point A to point B. It's a straight line. I've not talked to one person that hasn't had any adversity and any challenges along the way. And so the goal is for you and others to share tactics that help them navigate their pathway and ultimately inspire the listeners to not quit. I just don't want people to quit. I want them to persevere in the best way possible. So, with all that being said, what would you say your definition of greatness is?
I think it's a freedom. Because here's the thing, your sports career is going to be over at some point in your life, whether you're 13 or you're 23. And I was always chasing this greatness thing, and then like I said, we'll talk about it, like winning the Super Bowl. But greatness to me is having a purpose, living with a purpose, far beyond just what I can do, maybe on the field. So I think greatness is finding a purpose and intentionally living that way. Because we always say like we believe, and so many people say I believe, but it really just means they agree with. I believe when I say it is I believe, and my thoughts and actions line up with what I say I believe. So I think greatness is when my thoughts and action line up with what I say my purpose is. And like you said, it's not linear, it's up and down, but I think overall greatness is just having that purpose, waking up and letting your thoughts and actions follow it.
Yeah, and such a great and powerful definition. And I want people to hear what you had to say is you live in alignment with your purpose, you live in an alignment with your values,
Yes.
with your principles. The only way you can do that is if you know them. And that takes that deep moment to peel the layers back, to look at it, help the audience understand, like when they're digging through and they're looking for their values and their principles, what were some things that you did and what are some things that they may be able to do to help them define that then will help them lead to understanding their purpose?
Yeah, I think anytime you're talking about values, I think it's so much deeper than just I value faith, family, and football. I think sometimes it's just very, or what are my goals? We're going to talk about goals. Like what are goals, man? Like I want to play in the NFL. Like, well, what are you going to have to give up, man? And like, are you willing to do it? So I think the same goes with values. It's truly there's no right answer. I don't think that is, but I think taking quiet time, like journaling's been a big thing. I would tell them to step back and don't worry about mom or dad. Don't worry about coach. You need to sit down with you and when you look back, what would you regret doing? What would you not regret doing? So like, man, I value like standing up to adversity with courage. Um, People say humble confidence, but I mean, I believe that like you to be confident and also be like approachable and be able to talk. Like, so humble confidence is huge for me. Standing up for what's right. One of my values is integrity, and a lot of people say like integrity is doing the right thing when no one's looking. But sometimes I think the hard integrity for me is doing the right thing when everybody's looking, because sometimes we'll do the right thing when no one's looking. We're like, well, we'll read our Bible, we'll do the quiet time, well, we'll pray. But sometimes when we get around friends, we won't read the Bible because we're worried about what they think. We won't sit down and pray and get on our hands and knees and pray because we're worried about what they'll think. So those are some of mine. But I would say you have to sit down and get out of the sports mode, get out of the school mode, and what's important to you and what's ultimately going to lead you to the greatness I talked about of getting to where you want to go.
Man, you're the first person to share that other side of integrity because that's what takes courage. It's easy to pray when you're home by yourself and nobody's around. It's easy to cry in prayer and to
Yeah,
really just give yourself up or do the right thing. And there's times when we are challenged with our integrity when nobody else is around and say, you know what,
100%.
nobody's going to know if I do this.
Yeah.
But I've been challenged more in my life to live my values when, like you said, everybody else is looking and all eyes are on you. What's the decision?
Yeah, I
And
think even in this space that you're in, the space that I'm in, so many people will say, "Don't talk about faith," or "It's going to push people away." And I think it's an opportunity to be like, "No, this is my vow. My values are this. I'm a follower of Christ, and I will bring that into my business. And what the Lord has for it will be. It's just my job to be faithful. And like you said, like for you to step out in faith and bring the faith a part of what you're doing." Is integrity at the core of it. You're doing it despite what this world might say about it.
yeah, and I'll challenge people just like Josh will is that means if you're not doing the things when everybody else is watching, you're not in your true purpose. You're not in alignment. You're going to feel confrontation, you're going to feel resistance constantly because you're not doing what you should be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I just don't, and this is the thing, like I always say, like when I talk on an interview or a podcast or something, I don't have it all figured out. This isn't to say like, especially in high school that I had it all figured out. I'm sure we'll talk about my journey through high school. But what I am doing is intentionally setting things to where I want to go because we're going to fall to our standards. If you don't have standards and if you don't have values, when you do fall, you have nothing to stop you, man. Or when you don't feel like doing something, like what's going to keep you doing it? So I don't have it all figured out. But what I am willing to do is talk to people wiser than me, carry on, pass on what I've learned, and just continue to try to grow to be great.
Amen. Well, why don't you share with everybody? I know I gave everybody just some bullet points of your background, but it's a great story that people need to understand. Talk about adversity and perseverance and setting
Yeah.
big goals. So bring us up to where you're at today.
You want me to start at my childhood or?
Yeah, or just like your high school journey, because I know,
Yeah.
in talking about that undrafted coaching, just for everybody to have a good understanding is that
Yeah.
his goal is to coach student athletes and parents and coaches to help them, like he shared, through some of the challenging times that he went, but would love to give everyone some context to what is Josh's story and how is he
Yeah.
qualified to help people through tough times.
Yeah. I think first talking about undrafted, there's a couple reasons why I started it. If you ask anybody that's played sports, how much of what your sport is mental, everybody says some percentage of that. Some people say 90%, some people say 50%, whatever your percentage is. And then I always ask, what are you doing to train it? Because you train the physical stuff, you lift, you run, you do all that, you practice the skill work, the technique, you have coaches for it, but you're not training the mental side. So that's one thing. Another thing, back to my high school journey, I can remember almost to the year when I stopped listening to my father. I just, he was an awesome dad. He was at everything and supportive, and looking back was saying all the right things. There was just a time in high school where I was like, I think I know better. And from when I look back, I stopped listening to my dad and I started just listening to frankly, my dumb friends. So I didn't have anybody kind of in the middle that had done it, that had walked, kind of walked the walk and been there. So I think that's what qualifies me to do this. But through high school, like I said, I stopped listening to my dad, man. I, he was telling me all the right things. I was like, Dad, I know it all. And I always worked on the physical stuff. Like I talked about, I was a grinder, man, just up early and running and lifting and practicing hard, and just couldn't figure out why confidence didn't just show up on Friday nights. Um, Thought I knew it all through high school, thought I would figure it out. And it's a cool story now, but I walked on to James Madison. My goal, though, was to get a scholarship. And I look back and I think what you're doing now, what I'm doing now, could have helped me achieve that. So I go to college. My dad just told me every time you look across the line and you go against a guy with a scholarship, you're having to pay for school. Like, go take his scholarship. Go take it every time. You wake up, you lift with him, you train with him, you practice against him, take his scholarship. So I went in, physical work. Man, I worked. 2 years in, I earned 100% scholarship. Starting at left tackle, started my last 3 years of college. But again, I was I was outworking everybody physically. Still, the confidence thing wouldn't come. The time management stuff, having a process. All the coaches say, go to the next play, and had no idea how to go there other than just be like, okay, I'll go to the next play. And then I'm undrafted to the NFL. And man, that wasn't my goal. My goal was to be drafted. So it's an awesome story. I get into the NFL. Same thing. You're undrafted. You have something to prove. Everybody thinks they're kind of putting you in a box, man. They're pigeonholing you. You can't make it. I'm on the front page of the newspaper my rookie year, long shots to make the roster. And there's three just roster pictures of three guys sitting there. So I hung that up. Motivated me. Get up, work out, go. And man, I had no relationship with the Lord growing up. In the middle of my rookie season, I made the team being undrafted. I'm making more money than I ever thought I'd make. I had an apartment, about to be engaged to my high school sweetheart, had a new truck, had all the things. And I was miserable. I would go home and think, is this it? I had started going to church a little bit with one of my buddies that invited me on the team. His name's Tyler Shatley. Still plays for the Jags, 11 years in, best friend in the world. Invited me to church, man. So just a plug, invite people to church. So I start going to church with him, and they preach the sermon, man. Have you ever just climbed the ladder, and then looked and it's against the wrong wall? And I'm like, that's me, miserable. So long story short, I come to surrender my life to the Lord, and start finding a purpose. This didn't happen overnight. I would say 5 years into my walk, maybe my 6th year in the NFL, I get cut and adversity. I learn and grow from that. And then I meet a guy, Dr. Joe Corella, who works with the Bucks. And he is a psychologist, all this stuff. But what he did for me was we would sit down and meet and just talk. We would work on confidence. We would work on process. We would work on how to get to the next play. We would talk about life. We would talk about my family life, how things are at home, because if my world's not in order, sports can't be in order. If my relationships aren't in order, my sports can't be. If I'm not managing my time, I'm not performing at my best on the field. Um, so I do that for the last 4 years of my career and talk with him weekly. And it changed my perspective on sports. It changed my performance on the field. It single-handedly changed the trajectory of the end of my career. And I always knew my purpose once I surrendered my life to the Lord. This just gave me a new purpose that when I retired, I looked back and thought, there's no way the Lord has allowed me to go through everything I've gone through to put this on a shelf and not share this with other people and give them a head start high school, give them a head start in college. It doesn't matter when you start, just start. You're in the NFL, for you too. So yeah, that's kind of my journey to where I'm at through sports and what's led me ultimately to talking with you now about mental performance, mentorship, and all the things.
Man, that is so good. And it doesn't get old hearing that over and over. And so thank you for sharing that. And I just want to call the audience attention to a few things if you happen to miss is one is your friend that had the courage and the
Yep.
integrity when everybody was looking. And I don't know what Josh is going to think, but I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
invite him to church.
Yeah.
And that one simple, selfless act of, hey, come to church was enough that set you on a trajectory that you needed to be on. And there's no, like, I know we are in agreement with this, is the Holy Spirit stirred him to invite you that day because he knew that lesson was being taught that day and you needed to hear it. And you probably battled back and forth of, well, do I really want to go? It's church. I don't want to go. So the other lesson there is you have to go to church to be able to invite people to church. So that's where attendance is really critical and important. The other thing that you shared was, working hard and not listening to other people is that you have the cheat code to where you want to go if you just sit down and listen, like Josh had said even before, that his dad was there to help. But we all go through that. It's that prodigal son type moment.
100%.
But find people that have been where you want to be and learn and listen to them. The other thing that I really want to draw people's attention to was the difference that just talking to someone who listened to you matters in your life. Talk a little bit more about that for people.
Yeah, there's such like I think a stigma behind it of like, oh, I've got to be tough, I got to be strong, and you do. You need to be tough and you need to be strong. But you can also go share things with people that have gone before you to learn and not be dumb. I mean, I think it's to think you have it all figured out and to think I saw this quote the other day. It was like, no matter how far you drive, you're still the same distance toward the ditch. So like, no matter, man, me too. Like 10 years in the NFL and win a Super Bowl and all those things. I'm still just as close to the ditch as the kid in high school is. So the second you think you've got it, you don't have it. You don't have it all figured out. So, and I'm not saying it has to be you or me. Find someone that you trust that's gone before you that can sit down and kind of steer you. It's discipleship. You should have someone older than you pouring into you. You should have friends that you're walking alongside. And then eventually you should have people you're pouring into. That's how this is supposed to work. So, yeah, I think just the importance of talking to someone, it goes a long way. And you will be shocked at how many people before you and your same age are going through the same thing or went through the same thing. Removing the veil of, guess what? Before the games, I was anxious too, man. Like, felt like I want to throw up. And that's okay. But if you don't have a process to get through, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's develop a process to get through it because it's coming. Like, it's coming. So you're either going to deal with it now or you're going to deal with it later. Because when you're done, then you're a dad, you're a husband, you're starting a business, and all these things are still going to come back. So let's build skills now that'll help with sports, but will carry over the rest of your life.
Oh, for sure. And, the other element that you talked about was just, having an opportunity to build a process and to understand what's going to work for you and what's going to continue to lead. Because it's just like if you're an athlete, and this is to me, coach and mentorship is you have a coach that's going to tell you where to put your hands, how to set your feet, what to do with your hips. And if you don't listen, you're going to get run over. The same thing in life. If you don't apply the things people are sharing with you, then what's the point? There's really not even a point to be there. Josh, one other thing that you had mentioned several times was you struggled with confidence.
Mhm.
And so help people understand what you mean by that and how you're able to build a process to give yourself confidence.
I always thought that confidence came from like acquiring more skill. I always thought that my confidence would be if I was the best at throwing. I played quarterback in high school. Funny story, but if I thought I would, best drop, best throw, most accurate, that would bring confidence. And then if I'm the strongest, best footwork, and I'm not, you need to be the hard work is a must. That's working on the physical skill is a must. What I'm saying though is this confidence that you're wondering why you're getting random results when the game comes, or you wonder why you can get it done at practice and can't get it done on the field. That's what I'm talking about. I would see things where I would get it done in practice and I would be free and laughing and joking and trying new things and doing it. Then I would get in the game. And I'm going to talk about fear here in a little bit because that was another thing. I think there was a fear that paralyzes more than anything. And I couldn't figure out why it wouldn't just turn on. So to be completely honest, I struggled with that. Even once I started talking to someone 6 years in the NFL, I had no process 6 years in. I just was like hoping confidence would come and just keep stepping forward and just figure it out. And when I started meeting with Joe Corella with the Bucks, he did something simple. It was called AIDE, AIDE. And he would say, analyze, imagine, do, evaluate. And where I would break down is I would put the evaluate before the doing. So I would analyze what I had to do. I was always very studied, knew exactly what I had to do. And then my imagery would fall short at times, like visualization. I would be visualizing with my eyes closed, and then I would visualize myself losing. I'm like, all right, I'm still working on this, So I would do that. And then instead of just doing, I would start evaluating. What if I give up a sack? What if I have a bad game? What if I get cut? And so for me, it was having a process that I would tell myself it would be AIDE. And I would just analyze, imagine, do, evaluate. I'll evaluate tomorrow. Right now, I'm just going to cut it loose and do it. So that was a super helpful tip. Another thing is just when I was going into the Saints game, I posted this on my social media if you scroll back and look. But I'm going to play in the Saints game, and this is kind of when things started to shift for me in 2022. But I'm going to play in the Saints game, and I can't sleep. Night before the game, when I tell you I don't sleep a lick. I go talk to Joe the night before. I'm like getting just worked up, man. I can't figure it out. I'm just constantly looking for approval, and I don't know what's going to happen, whatever. I go to sleep, and I don't sleep the entire night. We have a game at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock their time. And I get there, and he's like, how are you feeling? And we're talking. And then he goes, hey, I want you to look around the stadium right now, and I want you to find something that brings you joy. He's like, what brings you joy? And I was like, my family, my daughter. He's like, what does your daughter do that brings you joy? And I was like, she dances. He's like, okay. So he's like, look around and find something. And it's hard. In the stadium, it's like Bud Light sign, Coors Light sign. It's hard to find something. So I'm looking, and then there's like this abstract logo. I think it's like a technology company. It has like a ball, and like it looks like someone dancing if you like. Not if you're looking at it, but if you think about it. And so I was like, that over there. And he's like, what's it remind you of? I was like, my daughter dancing. And he's like, so every time, this is what I want you to do. Every time you run onto the field, look at the sign. You have a good play, a bad play, you're between, whatever. You huddle up and you got a second timeout, look at the sign. You come off the field, good, bad, look at the sign. And so, man, I did it. I ended up tearing my calf like in the third quarter. So this isn't all to say that the adversity won't come. Those first 3 quarters, man, it was the first time, one of the first times I remember being completely free. In the Superdome, places rocking, can't hear. And I looked at that sign nonstop. And it just brought me joy. And I think that's an overarching theme of like our faith. Look back, look back. Look where he's been faithful. Look where you're going. So finding what you're passionate about, find your joy. places to remind you why you're doing what you do, and then just a simple thing of aid. Analyze what you need to do, imagine yourself doing it well, and then just go do it. Leave the evaluation to someone else or the next day.
Ooh, man, that's textbook. And there's just that
So,
story that you shared about finding that image and looking at it. I mean, that made me slightly emotional thinking through that of how many of us don't find an anchor in joy. We anchor
yeah.
in that evaluate, we anchor in the negative. And
Yeah.
so there's I mean, why else would you always stay in the negative? Because you anchor everything in the negative.
Yeah.
That joy is finding something to look at. And when you were saying that, it just reminded me. We watched a video yesterday, my son and I, about Paul and Silas in prison, and they were
Yeah.
in the basement of a prison, and I can only imagine how awful that would be.
Yeah.
But they were singing praises. They found joy in a moment of adversity, in just terrible surroundings, but the joy is what brought them through it. But it also is what created the earthquake. It created an overwhelming impact on the other prisoners, and ultimately the guard. And so it's just amazing what that joy can do. What would be some things that if you're thinking about coaching somebody up, a young student athlete or even a parent, of like, how can they find that anchor in their life similar to what you did?
Man, I think, like you said, I think it's just surrounding yourself with the people that have gone to where you want to go or been where you want to go. And honestly, like I said, man, since my life, the testimony of my life, I would point them to the Lord, point them to the Lord, point them to the Lord. That's only the true thing that can fill this hole and this void in your heart. Because joy isn't always comfortable. I think that's also another thing that, like, man, resistance doesn't always mean you're going the wrong way. I think, like, it's okay to go through some resistance, and I think some resistance shows you are going the right way. Um, so yeah, man, I think you got to truly look at what's important. You got to truly look at why you're doing what you're doing. If you like asking some of the kids I work with now, like, why do you play high school football? Why do you want to play in college? You have to identify the why. The what is usually easy. What you want to do, what you see yourself doing. But I think I would start and telling them is like, why? Answer the question. Why do you play sport? Why do you think you get worked up before games? Why do you want to play in college? Do you think there's this ultimate thing that you're going to get, like money and success and a car and a house, that's ultimately going to satisfy you? It's got to be so much deeper than that. Why? The one kid I work with, man, he's been awesome. And like, I asked him, like, why do you want to be the best player on your team? And he's like, because I want to use the talents I've been given to the best of my ability. That's a why, man. That's why I'm getting up to work out, because I want to be the best, not because I want to get the scholarship. It's okay to want to get the scholarship. That should be a goal if that's your goal. But answer the question of why you want to do the things. And I think that's a great start when you start asking those questions.
Yeah, and that's something to ask yourself as a parent, if you're a coach, if you're just a
Yeah.
human, is to ask some of those critical questions that Josh just shared. Is think of the why and think of, what's going to translate regardless of what you're doing. So many of
Yeah.
us, we put in, if somebody asks you why, you usually share the what. And I
Yeah.
like that delineation between the two, but ultimately is what it's going to strive you to do the most. I saw an interesting reel this morning about this gentleman was talking about some athletes train to win, which is great. That's perfect. But the ones that are really different, they train to dominate. So it sounds like the young man that you're working with, he just wants to do the best he can with what he's been given. And
Right.
talk about a great lesson for all of us in life, no matter what he's doing. If he never forgets that,
Yeah.
forget it. Forget it.
Right.
He's going to be able to he's going to be successful in everything that he does because of his perspective of what he wants to do. If he wants to be a mechanic, he's going to be the best mechanic he's ever been. If he wants to run
Yeah.
a Fortune 500 company, he's going to do the best that he possibly can. It's such a great lesson.
Yeah, like, what are you doing? Just what are you doing that's different? You know how many people say they want to play in college and they want to play in the NFL? It's like accepting accepting where you are, creating where you want to be, and then taking the steps to get there. people, very few people accept where they are. Just, this is where I'm at, wherever you are. Man, I'm a junior and I'm a starter for my high school team. Accept it. Like, I'm a sophomore and I'm the backup. Accept it. And now create where we want to go. We want to go to college. But very few people take the steps that you need to take to actually do the thing. So yeah, that's just another thing that I think, just accepting where we are, creating where you want to go, and then take the steps to get there. And ultimately, I think along the way, you need to answer those questions of why, because those will keep you up at night, man. Like you ask me some questions sometimes, and I'm just like, haven't thought about that. Well, start thinking about those questions, the deeper questions, and write them down, man. So when it gets hard and you face resistance, you can come back, and I think that ultimately creates the bigger purpose for parents and kids, to answer those questions.
And that's what's great in doing what we do and working with young people is you're asking them questions they've never been asked before.
Yeah.
And they want to be challenged. They want to think
Yes.
through those. They don't think that they do, but ultimately you look at them and they go, I never thought of that. And a lot of times they come up with really good answers. They're like, I don't even know, because they don't know what they don't know
Right.
until they're asked. So think about
Right.
that from our perspective as well is, what are we willing to look at and look at the mirror? And when you were talking, the two things that popped into my head that challenges people to admit where they're at is ego. So
Yes.
just like, how do you help young people or just really anybody that you talk to let go of the ego to accept where they're at?
I think it just takes a relationship. It takes honesty. I think it goes along with, like, when back to my faith. I surrender my life to the Lord, and then I go into the locker room and I'm having these conversations, and I'm just like, I mean, I just want to tell everybody, just tell them and tell them, and then you get in, like, these arguments with each other. Well, this, and then I'm trying to prove myself. I'm trying to whatever, and then it got to the point of, like, hey man, I can just tell you my story. I can tell you what's happened, and give them the freedom to be honest back, building the relationship. Because here's the thing, adversity's coming, hard things are coming, losses are coming, whether on the field or off the field. And I want to be the type of person that has a relationship built up with the kid, the college athlete, my friends, that when something goes wrong, they come to me. And they feel comfortable to come to me. They feel comfortable to share. So at first, I think we all kind of have this ego bravado, but when you're alone by yourself at night, laying in bed, like I was my first year in the NFL, just helpless, just didn't know where to go, didn't know where to turn. Um, we've all been there, whether people are willing to admit it or not. And I think just being there and building relationships, going first, I think is a way for them to drop their ego. When I talk to these kids, the first time I meet with them, usually I just share my story. Hey man, this is what I want to do for you, but this is where I've been. I've been crying in the bed before. I've thrown up before the games. I've felt like I was a terrible player. Felt like I was a terrible dad or husband. I mean, I've been there, dude. So when you want to be honest and you want to talk about that, then we can start making steps forward. So
Yeah, and what's great, just like your friend that invited you to church, is it takes someone else taking that first step and
yeah,
sharing your story. And it's not just a coach player relationship, parent child relationship, it's your buddies, it's your friends, it's other people to see. And like you said earlier, is that we've all been through it, and if we haven't, we're getting ready to. It's coming.
yeah,
And we haven't, we've been set forth to live a life, and it's never been planned to be perfect.
yeah,
And it's how you handle the adversities. And we all get through 100% of the adversities that we face. It's just a matter of, how well are you going to get through it? And how well, like you said earlier, do you just forget it and go next play? Because
right.
that's a challenge of helping people move into the next play. And so that brings me to my next question that I just thought of when I said that is, how do you help not just players, but how do you help people move to the next play after they've made a mistake?
So in a game, I'll talk like quickly. In life, I feel like you have more time, right? I think you messed up and you need to move on. You need to forgive the person. You need to apologize to the person. You have a little bit more time, but I'll talk specifically maybe about a game. You have a bad play in a game. For me, I was taught really at a young age, probably at high school. just like how important just take a deep breath, take a deep breath, take a deep breath. And I never really like, I just would think it like take a deep breath. But now as I'm through the NFL and had people come to my life, like it's actually scientifically proven that calms you down. So I would always take a deep breath. I would take 1 or 2 deep breaths. Now that I've found that image in 2022 in New Orleans, I would tell people to do that, man. Whether that's find anything, find a tree, find something random that you can look at and just reset. I think you need to take a deep breath. I think you need to find something to help you reset. There's some guys in Mind Gym. It's a book. They talk a little bit about like a touch point, like, all right, and then some words. As I started playing at my best toward the end of my career, I would go into the game with a plan. So, and not just elaborate, not some big elaborate plan, but like in pass pro, I would think, get off target hands, get off target hands. So like whatever happened the play before, and say I lost, I could be like, okay, did I not get off the ball? Did I not have a good target? Did I throw my hands? Like, and if I did all those 3 and lost, I could at least live with it. I could at least live without like, man, I should have. But the times where I've lost, so I would go to the next play. It's a pass play. I hear it in the huddle. I come to the ball. All right, get off. Like I'm getting off the ball first because if you're slow off the ball, you've lost already. I need to have a good target. So many people watch the head. I would always look at the V of the neck, target, and then hands. I was never like 360 and just big. I was like 325, 330, and whatever, good strength. But I had to play with my hands. I was long, so I would always want to throw my hands. In the run game, I would think target, hands, and finish. So I have a target, I would win with my hands, and I would finish. So I think between the deep breath, finding the thing to reset, and then having a couple words, whatever that is, man. Like, I saw a video the other day, guys going up to bat, plays for Arizona, plays baseball, and before he walks up to bat, he's like 10 feet tall and bulletproof. And I don't know what your words are. You've got to find things that work for you. And he was like at the plate, he's like, yes, yes, like I'm gonna swing. I didn't swing. Rather than like no or what if. I think those 3 things are critical between breathing, finding something that resets you, and then having a few words to either bring you down mentally or focus you physically.
Man, that's a clinic. That's so
Yeah.
good. And it reminds me of when I was going through a big challenge personally in confidence in who I was as a
Yeah.
man, was that I repeated to myself, I'm becoming the man God wants me to be. Because
That
I
is.
just knew I had to do something every day to be that man that God designed me to be, because I didn't feel like I was standing in that. And it challenged me on a daily basis. It gave me strength and confidence. But like we said earlier, it gave me something actionable to make sure I was doing that day to
Yeah.
stand in integrity to become that person. I couldn't just wing it and just say, well,
Right.
I hope I do something. It's okay. Well, what am I going to do today, Jeff? If I'm saying I'm becoming the man that God wants me to be, what am I doing today to step into that?
Yeah, I think write it down. That's a great start because I think at least the guys I've worked with and work with and like talk, no one writes anything down. They're like, I want to do this, I want to. But when you write it down and you see it, you look at the back of your phone. I don't. Your phone will probably tell you how much you look at the back of your phone a day, but have it written on the back of your phone, right? I mean, write it and put it on your mirror. Like write it somewhere where you're going to see it. Like you said, like be the man that God's called me to be. Be the man that God's called me to be. And you start to see it and you start to believe it. Because what you think will be what you believe. You will start to feel the way you believe and you'll start to act. You'll start to act that way. So think, feel, believe, and act. Like it's going to take you starting to think about it. And then you got to write it down and see it to actually make it come to fruition.
Yeah, you can change your life with what Josh just said. I mean, you could completely, if you don't like where you're at right now, do
Yeah.
those things. And because I'm walking proof that you will change your life. Now, it's not overnight, like you said, is it's going to be a
Yeah.
process
Yeah.
that if you're willing to be dedicated to it, that will change your life.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's when you talk mental performance and you talk just opening up and being honest, it's uncomfortable. It's people are uncomfortable with it. And I've heard from other people like, and now I've adopted it, like be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like it's gonna be uncomfortable. And I can tell you this, throughout all the adversity, I tore my knee and I tore my calf and I messed my thumbs up and I got a hip replacement. I can tell you that over time, I've become more comfortable, way more comfortable being uncomfortable. I am really okay being uncomfortable. And I'm sure there's another stage, the sanctification. As I grow closer to the Lord, there will be things revealed that will be more uncomfortable and I'll have to lean into. But looking at my life now, can you look back and be like, am I just chasing comfort, or am I working to be more comfortable when I'm uncomfortable? You're uncomfortable when you work out, but you will be uncomfortable later in your life if you don't work out. So go ahead and pick one and learn to be comfortable now being uncomfortable.
Yep. And then what you're striving for, it's going to constantly move. So if you continue to
Yes.
work out to be the best, like
Yes.
the young man that you're working with, you're always going to be sore after every workout. And
Yeah.
strength comes from soreness. And it's, they talk about, I've heard several different people, so I don't think it's original to any of the ones that I've heard it from, is that everybody wants the view, but they don't want the hike to get there.
There it is.
And we all want the Super Bowl ring. We want to have an NFL career. We want to have these things that the outside world lifts us up. But are you willing to go through what Josh went through and sacrifice what he went through to get there? Most of us are not.
Right. And like you said, everybody wants to be strong. Nobody wants to be sore. And man, I think that doesn't just go for working out. It's going to take, I heard this is an analogy kind of, but there's like with nutrition, your whole life. You remember really good, everybody wants the really good meal. You remember some of those. You remember some really, really bad ones. You're like, that was the worst meal I've ever had. But all the meals in the middle are nourishing your body. You just don't really remember them, but they're having an effect. They're having an effect. So those times where you work out and you're like, I don't know if I got stronger. The time you read your Bible and you're like, I don't really know if I got anything from that. Things are happening. Just keep taking the steps. It's not always going to be mountaintops and valleys, man. A lot of the time it's somewhere in the middle of like, I'm not sure if that was worth it, or I'm not sure if that worked. Keep taking the steps, man, because you're not going to always remember these super high highs and these super low lows. Just keep at it and keep taking a step forward.
Amen. Well, I want to go back to something because I want to be respectful of your time. I could talk for another 45 minutes, but it goes in line with pathways to greatness. And you talked about earlier. So your career in the NFL was a left tackle. Your career in college was a lineman. Completely different from a quarterback. You said you played quarterback in high school. So how did you make that transition from quarterback to lineman?
Yeah. So I played quarterback my whole life. I played in rec league. Started playing football at 6, played quarterback every year of that. Quarterback through middle school, 4-year starter in high school at quarterback. And always, I don't know, just could always throw it. I worked with my dad all the time. Like I said, I worked hard, man. Like could throw, could run a little, was big and tall and do all the things, and thought all these scholarship offers were coming, but it had a blast doing it. I played defense in middle school and stuff, but in high school, I literally just was the quarterback. But then I walk on to JMU. My only opportunity was to walk on as a tight end or an athlete, but it was to play tight end. I had a walk-on offer to Richmond, which was like 20 minutes from my hometown, and then James Madison, which was about 2 hours away. But went there and I played tight end, and I had a blast playing quarterback. But played tight end my redshirt freshman year. And they told me if I could find a way on the field to start, I would earn a scholarship. They would pay for school. So I'm playing tight end and doing the best I can. I've never had blocked in my life, but I'd always, looking back, I should have known, because in high school, the first play of every high school game was a run play because I needed to get hit to calm down. And I was like, maybe not the best trait for a quarterback. This is like Tim Tebow's going off in college, so we're running quarterback power and having a blast. But played tight end. Then we had some D linemen graduate, and so they're like, maybe some D line. Went to school 220, end of first semester I'm 250 from the dining hall and the weight program. Then I played D line for that spring semester and spring ball, and I find myself like a rotational third down, like 3 technique, like just come in. I'm setting picks, running games, whatever, all that stuff. Had a blast doing it the next season. Well, halfway through that season, a tight end gets hurt. I go back to tight end, find my way on the field a little bit. They gave me, I guess because I was on the field 50% of the time, they gave me 50% scholarship. So my second year, I'm on 50%. Well, after my second season, I go into the spring, and Theo Sherman played tackle. He's a really good left tackle in college. He graduates, and they're like, we have no one to play left tackle. And thankfully, this is before transfer portal, because that's crazy. They'd have just transferred someone in, and all the walk-ons would have missed out. But so they're like, you're like 270. I'm like 270 now, a year and a half in. I'm like 50 pounds up. They're like, 10, 15 more pounds, and you could play tackle. You can do it. And I still talk to my college coach, Mickey Matthews, because when he moved me to O-line, they told me in training camp, I reported as a D-lineman. They told me a week into training camp, you're going to play O-line. The guy who recruited me told me. And I'm crying in the dining hall. I'm crying. I called my dad. I'm transferring. I'm leaving. He's like, well, we don't have a transfer portal. He's like, you can't transfer. You're going to have to sit out. You're on 50%. You're staying there. And I was like, all right, I'll stay here. And he's like, you better do the best you can. You better keep working. And like, that's all I'd ever known. So that was fine. So all that to say, I started the last 3 years at left tackle. Only played O-line for 3 years of my life through college. And yeah, it's been one of the biggest blessings in my life. Not just because of like undrafted in the NFL and I made a career out of playing O-line, but for all the O-linemen, it is special. It's a team within a team. You will be a better husband for it, a better father for it. You will be a better leader for it. You know how to work together with people, lead, go through the hard stuff, not get a bunch of accolades when you do really, really well, and get drugged through the mud when you do poorly, and that's okay. So yeah, fun little journey, fun little story, but played O-line, went undrafted, then played O-line for the rest of my life, and finally lost. I retired in January at 330, and now I'm 240. So went back to my normal size after I used it.
Man, I should have started with that story. I didn't even know. That's a key reason why you have to listen when people are talking, because they're going to tell you things. Because to me, that just echoes so much to the pathways to greatness is you don't know what greatness lies in wait for you if you're closed-minded. Like you were open-minded, you were willing to try things, to be uncomfortable and say, I've only ever played quarterback and I guess I can catch a ball. So I kind of understand how that works. But to go from that to probably one of the hardest positions on the football field at left tackle. 100%. I mean, because you're out there by yourself and you are the only line of defense between you, the edge, and the quarterback's back. Like they can't see anything. And
100%.
That's a testament to you. And I know that that's a testament to the audience of keep an open mind, stay uncomfortable, but always just go where you feel like you're being led and wait to, like he said earlier, wait to evaluate later.
Yeah, you don't know what's on the other side of obedience. That's the reason to be obedient. And like not obedient, like obviously you should be obedient to your parents. I'm saying obedient to like what you say you want to do. Obedient, do the workout. You don't know what's on the other side of obedience. When somebody tells you to do something or you feel nudged by the Lord to do something, do it because you don't know what hangs in the balance. I say, and thankfully there's people in my life to tell me like, you're staying at school. I love you enough to tell you you're staying. But like being willing to like jump into a new stage and just go for it because you don't know what it could lead to. And so I guess, like I said, don't ever think you got it and take the step because dude, the best thing that the Lord has for you could be on the other side of you just taking another step.
Yep. I was just going to ask you if you had anything to parting words for the audience. That was pretty powerful. Anything other than what you just shared? Because that was great.
Yeah. For me, I'll touch on fear for a second. There's all this fear, man. I think when you're going back to ego, at the core of it, I think people are fearful. They got to put up this kind of bravado and fearful. I would just tell like faith produces action and fear is going to paralyze. And ultimately, it's going to make you doubt your beliefs and believe your doubts. And so when you find yourself in that, you need to step forward in faith. And it's going to take courage. And you can't have courage if you never face hard things. So first of all, if you face something hard, that's an opportunity to be courageous and take the step. And it's okay to be scared. You're scared, man. You don't want to lose. You don't want to mess up. I get it. You're scared you're not going to get the scholarship, but that's an opportunity to be faithful. But fear, when you feel fear and you're paralyzed from it, that's when you need to realize, like, I need to find that thing to anchor to, find the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, and keep going forward and walk in faith. So, yeah, thank you.
Amen to that. So how can people find and follow you?
Yeah, so I'm Undrafted Coaching on all platforms, Instagram, I think it's on Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff. But yeah, Undrafted Coaching is the best way to follow me. My name's, like you said, Josh Wells. Yeah, reach out, man. Like I said, I'm open. Any questions, you want to DM me, send the DMs. I have no problem responding to you, and just excited to see where this goes, and ready to share and ready to pass things on. So.
Yeah, well, he means it, because I reached out to him initially and I was, flabbergasted that I got a response, because so many people just don't respond to people. And it's been very genuine. Watch his stuff, listen to it, send things that you have from a question perspective. He's really working to build an amazing community for student athletes and parents and coaches. So we're aligned in that realm. Yeah. And he offers a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge to be able to help you out. So Josh, thank you today.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you for an opportunity to share.
Yep. Well, everybody, Josh Wells. Thanks for joining us on the Pathways to Greatness podcast. We hope that today's conversation inspired you to take steps towards your own greatness. Remember, every journey starts with a single step. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit. Actually, share it with 3 people that you might think it might benefit. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and carving your own path to greatness. Take care.